Hello, hello! Since I have finally gotten to the Große Kurfürst on my Russian account, I figured it was time to make a commentary on this newly unlocked ship. Now, I have done one fairly recently on EU, but this is pretty much still a work in progress on Russia. I am running the 406 guns, not the 420s yet, since I don't have them unlocked. It was a combination of free XP and a bunch of grinding on the Friedrich der Große that allowed me to unlock this one. Getting rid of the Friedrich der Große is of course highly satisfying because the Kurfürst is such a better ship simply because instead of having to rely on 8 guns, you now have 12 guns. And that's 50% more guns, and that means you got a whole lot more firepower, which makes it a whole lot more reliable when it comes to punishing broadsides. Like for example this Zao giving me a flat, nice broadside, instant punishment, double citadel, 28k damage dealt, and that has been very, very satisfying. When you play a lot of... anyone who's played a lot of Friedrich der Große knows just how kind of fed up you tend to get with that ship after a while. It has its bright sides, but when you play it a lot, you start to get really, really fed up with just how many times you get those perfect broadsides and then you shoot and then you get 1 over penetration and you're just face palming thinking, Jesus, I'm gonna have to grind this ship. Aimed too high. I was hoping to punish this Hindenburg. I thought he would continue turning, but he instead stopped his turn and kept sailing straight, which is a bit unfortunate. The bright side, of course, of running these 406 guns is the fact that your reload is extremely fast. As you can see, pretty much 24-25 seconds, very, very fast reload. Of course, in return, you have lower alpha damage, and you have lower pen on long range, and that's a very weird-looking citadel. But honestly, I'll take it. That was quite odd. I think dispersion allowed me to hit him right underneath the turret. More importantly, while I'm running spotter plane, I do spot their Essex. And carriers are big, fat, not slow though. Carriers are very fast, so I take a proper lead. But they are big and fat, so I might as well take a shot at him as well. I use my front guns on him, back guns on the Hindenburg. And if he was sailing in a straight line, which he was, I managed to punish him also with a double citadel. The Hindenburg, however, turned out, he knew what was coming, so he dodged those shells. So overall, a pretty strong opening from me, and we have managed to cap C. The problem is we've already lost a DD. A lot of broadside being given by the Kurfürst, but I'm giving a lot of broadside as well, trying to turn out so I can dodge most of his shells, which I do. I punish him for 12k, he barely scratches the surface. I do know that there's at least 2 DDs here, so I turn out, since I don't want to. You don't want to be crossing across channels like that one. If you know they have DDs there, crossing across a channel like that is a good way to get killed. I pop Hydra as well. See if 1 gun is enough to kill this Ibuki, and then I use the rest of the guns on the Sao. Yeah, that was enough to kill him. If someone is very, very low to the point that you only need 1 hit to shoot, 1 hit to kill him, don't waste 12 shots on him. I mean, especially in a ship that has this many guns. You're not gonna need, at that distance, you're not gonna need to shoot all 12 of your guns to kill him unless RNG really, really, really hates you. So I just shot my front gun, waited until I was certain he was dead, and then I shot the Zao. Because there's no point blowing all the guns on something that's pretty much a guaranteed kill with just 1 gun. So try to conserve that. That's especially important when you upgrade from these 406s to the 420s and your reload becomes longer. It's still a good habit to learn with the 406s already, that you don't throw away your shells left and right. A bit of an issue here, we've lost 2 DDs at this point, we are starting to fall behind on points because of that, and with all these DD deaths, well, they have managed to secure C, and it looks like they are about to secure B. All these ships on my left are angled and turning away, so while this is happening, I'll see if I can maybe harass these guys pushing through C instead. All these guys on my left, yeah, you can see they're all angled. They know I'm about to shoot at them. They know to angle and dodge against me, so instead I turn my ship towards them because I want to close the distance. You want to get closer in the ship, and in the meantime I harass the team at C, because obviously they are being quite boxed in and they're having issues dealing with this force here. And the third DD is dead, and now it's starting to look a bit bleak here. Baltimore, I expect him to straighten out, which he does. Keep note of the minimap. You see the minimap, there was an island in front of him, so the only way he could turn was either straight towards us or straight into that gap away from us. So I knew he was going to turn away, most likely, since you don't really want to turn into the entire enemy fleet, and that's why I waited patiently until he straightened out before I shot. Some carrier planes. There are 2 tier 9 carrier planes, carriers in this game, so that's obviously going to be a big threat. First of all, because the Grosse Kurfürst has very poor anti-air, and second of all, because I rarely spec my battleships for anti-air, because in general carriers are quite a rarity, and even a fully spec'd anti-air battleship, unless you're a Montana that goes pretty much completely full anti-air, you're not really going to be shooting down much regardless. You can shoot down planes at tier 8, if you're facing tier 8 carriers or like lower tiers. That's when you actually can do something, but tier 9, tier 10 carriers, they get such a huge health bonus that your AA simply can't keep up. That's why I don't consider it a valid choice anymore. Whereas something like a full AA build, North Carolina, is terrifying to tier 8 carriers. It's not nearly as threatening to anything high tier. I catch the Kurfürst turning, but unfortunately the damage is very underwhelming. We keep losing ships and we're now down 200 points. But I keep pushing down this flank. I can't really push into the cap because there's no way I'm going to be able to secure that cap. And honestly, with all these battleships on this flank, I would kind of put myself at a very vulnerable position. And there's so many islands and so much stuff there that would greatly hinder my maneuverability. And of course the fact that I know that they have a DD in there. I do kind of want to push this flank. I'm just waiting for my hydro, and it's up now, so now I should be able to start pushing aggressively down this flank. Pop the hydro and start pushing. There's a smoke here, so that of course tells me that the Benson is on this flank, and he is more than likely waiting for me. So, but with the hydro active, I can now easily charge down this flank, and I no longer have to delay. The reason you kind of want to time your pushes around your consumables, especially the hydro. In this case, I timed it around hydro because I knew of this DD here. He pops out way too close to me, and battleship AP, of course, is absolutely ridiculous against DDs in its current state. This is something I highly dislike. I don't think a battleship should be able to punish a DD without being forced to switch ammo type. I think it's stupid that the best ammo type for a battleship in every single situation is AP, because what's the point of having HE then when all you ever do is shoot AP at everything? And DDs in particular shouldn't get penned by AP shells. Overpens, sure. Those normal pins that literally one-shot them, no, that shouldn't happen. That's, in my opinion, just stupid balance. And please don't try to argue realism with me. If you're arguing realism here, then we should nerf battleship accuracy from 30% hit rate to 5 to 7, or actually 1% to 7%, which was around what battleship accuracy was in World War II. So yeah, and I think the whole battleship AP versus DDs is grossly imbalanced right now, and something that should be changed. Regardless, we do kill off the Benson. I do the majority of the damage, but the important thing is that he is dead. The Iowa pushes in far too aggressively and gets melted. But the Tirpitz gives me broadside in return, which allows me to punish him. He was too eager to get the Iowa kill, and that cost him heavily. He had HE loaded though, and I think at least, and he shot me with a huge HE volley. But that's of course one of the strengths of this build that I run, which I call of course the tanky build, and that's that I don't worry too much about HE. You can deal with the fire, because, well, they can only get one fire on your superstructure. Now this Kurfürst is actively angling against me, actively dodging, angling, and trying to keep his distance, which makes it very hard for me to actually do anything about him. So while I have my spotter plane active, I might as well see if I can harass the rest of the ships, because we are actually down to a 5 versus 5 at this point. My team has been dying like flies on the right flank, which is of course an issue. Well, it looks just a bit too high. Very hard to hit. An actively dodging Neptune or any sort of Royal Navy cruiser at long range is very hard to hit, because they turn on a dime, and they have very good acceleration while turning. So even if you predict it, you have to pretty much predict it perfectly. I instead go for the big fat Friedrich der Große, who looks like he's sailing in a straight line, because him I can punish much easier. And I do chunk him for 7k, which with the fires burning on top of him means that he will most likely go down. So that was some good contribution at least. I am trying to close the distance with not just this Friedrich der Große, Große Kurfürst. I'm also trying to close the distance with this carrier. Neptune smokes up, so I'm gonna save my volley until I'm past this island in front of me, because I don't want my shells to hit the island. Waiting until I see a hit. There we saw. You see hit markers from the other ships hitting that guy. So I shoot into the smoke, and meanwhile the carrier is in fact going for me. The hit marker proves true, and I land a 4-5k hit on that Neptune, which combined with the fire is probably going to be enough to kill him. So that was some good help in helping my team get rid of him. The problem here is the carrier going for me. I of course turn sideways to make sure, I turn to the right to make sure they don't get an easy drop across my entire hull. And I focus fire the planes. The Neptune does burn down thanks to all the damage poured down on him, even though he's smoked up. As you can see, not really shooting down many planes here, but all those bombs on me, and I only got one fire. That's of course the strength of fire prevention. You can only get one fire on the superstructure of the Große Kurfürst when you run the fire prevention build. So this build, even though I said it's weak to carriers, thanks to fire prevention, it's not that weak. It's mostly weak to the torpedo bombers. The bombers themselves, well, until AP bombers arrive, are not really that big of a threat. Since the Kurfürst is actively angling, I'm gonna see if I could deal with the one thing that is trying to fight me very, very actively, and that is the Essex. As I said, the Essex is big and bulky, and almost a 10k hit. That's pretty okay. I get a good penetration, sadly no Citadel. I give a bunch of broadside to the Große Kurfürst now, because I'm gonna see if I could maybe finish off this Essex while I still have spotting. Second volley, unfortunately, dispersion lands all around him. I try to see if I can get him with the next volley though. In the meantime, I start angling back towards the Kurfürst again, because I can't take this much of damage from him. However, he makes a mistake and turns in, giving me a lot of flat broadside, and I instantly punish it with a 17k volley. I did in fact hit the Essex, by the way, for another about 9-10k, so he's very, very low, but unfortunately a low HP Essex is still a big threat, and I did not manage to secure the kill. Looks like the Kurfürst finally realizes that he needs to deal with me. He can't just constantly flee, because not only is his carrier in trouble, I'm also chunking him out quite heavily. So he turns around and takes the fight with me. Now it looks like he's threatening to ram me, which honestly isn't that big of a problem, because we have the ship lead, 42, and he has the health lead. I got like 33k health, he has 48k. So ram in these situations would benefit me. It would be a win for me in every single way. So I'm honestly not too worried about him going for the ram. I'm more than willing to take this ram. I do focus his guns though to make sure his front guns can shoot me. So if he's rushing me like this, only his front guns can focus me. I turn hard left, not just because I want to just ram and shoot this Große Kurfürst, but also because I want to make it hard for these bombers to get good hits on me. I'm saving my guns as long as possible. You notice that I damaged that one front turret. I'm gonna be aiming for that front turret, the barbette for it, and I shoot, and I actually managed to destroy that front gun with my volley. Also because I delayed my shot so long, I managed to get 10 penetrations and only 2 bounces. So those 10 penetrations combined, of course, dealt a pretty overwhelming 32k damage, and I set a bunch of fires, so he was guaranteed to go down. But when he was at 80 health, finally my teammates decide, hey, let's help this guy out. So I thank him for his great help in dealing 80 damage to that Große Kurfürst that I dealt more than 100,000 damage to. So thank you very much, Bismarck, you were a great help. No sarcasm involved. At this point though, the game is pretty much over. I am securing A for the team, and they only have their carrier left, and you can see just how low I left him. At this point he's no longer far enough away to be able to actively dodge any of my shells, and hopefully I'll get this as a consolation prize. I do in fact finish off the Essex as the consolation prize, and the game ends with a pretty convincing victory or result. 282,000 damage, which I consider very good for the Grosse Kurfürst, and 700k credits, always nice. 15k XP, also nice, and the kind of rewards that I like. Fireproof and Dreadnought, that's two signs of a lot of tanking going on, and Confederate and High Caliber, that's two signs of a lot of damage being dealt to multiple different targets. So those are pretty much my favorite rewards. Now, looking at the team score, I could have gotten some better XP. A little bit unfortunate with some of those kill secures, you could say, I guess. But still, 3.4k XP is still a very good result ever since they nerfed the XP. And considering I didn't actually get any cap defenses at all, and I didn't cap anything at all, this was purely from taking damage and dealing damage. I consider 3.4k a very good result. Interesting note is just how useless our Taiho was. He shot down a total of 5 planes against a strike Essex, so one has to wonder kind of what the hell was going on there. Sorry, it was a fighter Essex, not strike Essex, fighter Essex, but still only 5 planes, like what the hell happened there. Detailed report, well, of course, damage wise, pretty much purely AP shells. 114 shells landed, 276k. Some HE damage, and only really one fire towards the end, which was just about to burn this Grosse Kurfürst to death, and then of course he got secured. Shot down 10 bombers, not that big of a deal. A bunch of AA modules destroyed, not that big of a deal. I tanked 67,000 fire damage, once again. Fire damage, not a big issue, you can heal it back. And 176,000 damage tanked and 2 million potential damage. Not the highest numbers, but really not that bad of numbers either. It shows you've been a very active participant in the battle itself. 75k spotting, which is a bit surprising considering we had both carriers and DDs in this game, and I still managed to get that much spotting. That is pretty surprising. And finally, of course, the credits. Pretty good credit bonus, honestly. 600k just with premium, and then some bonuses on top that buffed it even higher. And XP wise, also pretty overall good results. Anyway, I might as well rehash my tank build, since I'm making a proper Grosse Kurfürst commentary for my Russian account. I might as well rehash the build that I prefer to use, as well as displaying what signals I like using, since people always keep asking for that stuff. Anyway, let's move on. Now, sadly, because a patch was just released today that updated the Russian client, I am actually unable to log in to my Russian client, but considering I have the Grosse Kurfürst on my EU client as well, it's not really a big deal. I can just show you exactly the same build I use on my EU client. Module wise, first of all, in my commentary I didn't have the 420s upgraded yet, and I didn't have them unlocked yet. Not to mention I like experimenting with the 406s a bit on the Russian server. But ultimately I do like the increased long-range penetration you get from the 420s, so I do ultimately recommend them because you get a higher alpha damage, and that's of course pretty much what you always want in a battleship. Battleships aren't really about DPM as much as they are about that sudden huge hit where you catch people by surprise. So obviously you want that sudden huge hit to be as hard hitting as possible, and upgrading the guns does exactly that. Consumable wise, premium damage control and premium heal, these two are pretty much must-haves. And then in order, if you can afford it, premium hydro followed by premium spotter plane, which isn't nearly as important. Note that I run the spotter plane to counter smoked up ships, and well, sometimes for increased range, but most of the time it's for dealing with smoked up Royal Navy cruisers. Upgrade wise, auxiliary armaments mod, because honestly I don't really find myself losing main guns. Well, it happens extremely rarely, and it is so very rare that I consider keeping my secondaries and my AA alive to be more important than keeping my main guns alive. Better dispersion on my main guns, I consider this a pretty must-have. On cruisers you can run the AA guns, but on battleships this one is worth the 7%. Faster gun reload to get it down to that 28.2 second reload. Damage control 1 and 2. Now this is somewhat debatable, considering some people can't really deal with the rudder shift, but personally this is kind of part of my whole tank build aspect of building my Große Kurfürst. No, it doesn't handle the best, but it is extremely tanky, and I rely on hydro to warn me in time that I have to dodge. Of course, this does make you weak to carrier torpedo bombers, that must be mentioned, and it's an obvious weakness, and that's just something that I've learned to deal with. And finally, concealment, because, well, you have hydro, you don't need target acquisition. Captain perks wise, I've actually been experimenting quite a lot with priority target. I used to run preventive maintenance or even double spotter planes at a time. Direction center has lost a lot of its value ever since they nerfed the duration of fighter planes. When fighter planes got nerfed on battleships, ever since then I've kind of moved away from direction center. It's simply not quite as valuable anymore. And recently I've been running priority target because what I've noticed is the DDs tend to target you a lot, even when they're undetected, or even when they don't have their torps ready. So priority target gives you I've been using it to get a pretty early heads up on when DDs are around or when they intend to torp you. And I've been attempting to learn and use this against them, this information that they give me by constantly targeting me by using priority target. This isn't necessarily the best choice. It might be that preventive maintenance is still the best choice, but if you are very aware of the number on priority target and you want to experiment with me, then priority target as a first pick is a very valid option. Followed it up with Adrenaline Rush. This is in order priority. So follow it up with Adrenaline Rush, then get Superintendent, and finally Concealment Expert. Once you have Concealment Expert, you build into Fire Prevention, and then you build into faster turret traverse. Now this is the point I'm at on my Russian captain. I have a 16-point captain on my Russian captain, and the last 3 points go of course into basics of survivability, which is even faster repairs on anything broken, and of course increases your tankiness even further. But this part was missing from my commentary, or from my game on the Russian server, since this is of course on my EU server where I have all 19-point captains. And finally, of course, flag-wise, the two priorities, honestly, when it comes to flags on any battleship is the heal flag, India Delta, and the fire prevention flag, India Yankee. These two are the most important ones. And then there's like some nice additions. November Foxtrot, faster consumable usage, which is really good on German battleships because you can use hydro faster, you can repair faster, you can heal faster, you can use your spotter planes faster, so forth. So the 5%, it's not much, but it's a small addition. Secondaries tend to be pretty much only useful on battleships, so this is pretty much the battleship only thing. Not that big of a deal, but hey, it's a nice little bonus, 5% to a lot of values. I run this if I deal with carriers. The 10% is actually pretty damn good for a flag, and the speed flag is also quite useful. These are pretty much the combat related flags, and but usually I don't run all of them because I don't consider it that necessary. I like to save my speed flags for my DDs and fast cruisers, and I like to save these for my anti-air focused ships and so forth, so not really that necessary. But these two I run on all battleships. India Yankee, India Delta, absolute must-haves. Anyway, that was my Große Kurfürst commentary, this featuring the 406 guns. I'll probably be featuring a couple more of these as I gain more experience with the ship on the Russian server. And honestly, I've been meaning to do a proper comparison between 406 and 420s. In the past I did do it once before, but the meta has changed significantly since then. In the past I had preferred the 420s, but we'll have to see if I reach the same conclusion this time as well. Anyway, that was all from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this Große Kurfürst commentary.